he's going up there with the wife to spend the night for the evening by themselves. And that apparently wasn't the case.
No, and I'm sorry. The reason why I'm laughing is because I don't remember the last time we got to do anything like that. And so
that's called adulting. And welcome everyone to episode 45 of The Mashup, the best bourbon conversation you're going to hear all week long. We're your hosts, Michael, Anthony, and Steven. Hey, fella.
Hey, fella.
We are without our Michael this evening. Michael might be gone for an episode or two, so we're without him. He's very busy at home this time of year.
Yeah, and for those of you guys who don't know, I know we talk and joke a lot about our professions, and you may have gathered that, some of us are working in it. Education sector, but Michael actually might be a secret government agent and we just don't know it yet. It's very possible because he's just mysterious man of mystery,
You could be very right. He could have gone on a secret mission out in the Afghan land.
There you go. It's possible. He could be somewhere in the Middle East. We'd have no idea.
We don't.
So anyway, we're hoping that we get to get back with Michael soon, but and
I'm sure we'll have some great stories when he comes back.
Oh, I'm sure he'll be loaded.
Yeah, he'll be loaded for several episodes.
I already heard of a few people who were, spoofing the cat in the wall, and I said, "This is no laughing matter." We were ready to go, and that cat really put a kink in things. So, speaking of strange occurrences, so I have one day where I got to be on campus really late, and when I came home, of course the kids are sleeping and stuff like that, and my wife starts telling me about the fact that the power went out for like a matter of 5 minutes, but of course it was right in the middle of dinner time. So the kids freaked out. My daughter's crying, right? She's upset. And my son actually sprang into action, all 6 years old and was like, it's okay. He's trying to comfort his sister. We were really proud of him for doing that, but we were also kind of like, what in the heck happened that the power was out for like a mere 5 minutes? Did that happen over this way too?
I heard about it only through text message because I went and worked out, I think, literally 10 minutes before it happened, so I wasn't even home.
Oh, nice.
When it happened, but I'm sure some animal decided to cross some sort of electrical line and blew up.
Unfortunately.
And that took out something, and they had to go fix the substation somewhere. Yeah. I'm sure that's what typically happens. A squirrel that likes to cross the trans lines.
When will they ever learn?
Yeah. You can't touch phases together.
Not happening, right? So coming off that wonderful occurrence this past weekend, travel with the family up to Kings Island.
That's funny because you told me that you were going to be gone. In my head, it was for one night.
Yes.
And I think, oh, good for you. He's going up there with the wife to spend the night for the evening by themselves. And that apparently wasn't the case.
No, and I'm sorry. The reason why I'm laughing is because I don't remember the last time we got to do anything like that. And so
that's called adulting.
I know, adulting, right? Anybody that has kids, you value that time. You love your kids when you're with them. But no, of course not. We weren't going for an adulting trip. We were going only to take our kids up there to see they light up the park this time of the year. We love to go see Christmas lights and everything.
Oh, that's at Kings Island?
Yeah, so they light the park up and, they have all kind of concessions and everything else, and you walk around and you take in all the sights and you can ride some rides and play games and things like that. So we went up there, had a fantastic time, won some, stuffed animals with superhero dad, that kind of stuff. Kids were all excited. We get back to the hotel, and of course, kids that are all sugared up, they're drinking hot chocolate and eating funnel cakes and doing all kind of crazy
funnel
stuff.
Funnel cake sounds great.
A little bit later bedtime than usual. 10 o'clock rolls around, 10:15. We're just getting the kids down. We're like, okay, guys, calm down, everything else. And it's just like, poof. All of a sudden, like a big pop, and the whole hotel goes black.
So you've had 2 power outages in one week.
2 power outages in 1 week. And so, of course, the kids freak out. They're like having PTSD from the power outage that happened just a couple days previously. My wife and I were like, what the heck? So the best part about this is, have you ever been in a hotel when the power's gone out?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, so they have a backup generator, and the generator was like right outside our room. So all I'm hearing is like, grrr, like all this noise, and I'm like, oh my God, what is going on here? So I walk out into the lobby, and it's filled with people. Everyone's kind of looking at each other. Nobody knows what to do. And there's one person, poor lady working the desk, and she's just like freaking out. And the phone just keeps ringing over and over and over again. And she's trying to pick up and like say anything to comfort people who are like yelling at her. And then she's like, hello, are you there? So people keep hanging up on her, and then nobody can get in the front door because the door is closed. It was like pandemonium.
That's awful.
For like 2 hours. And so anyway, we thought the better of it and knew the power would eventually come back on, and went back to our room, fell asleep, and it did come back on at like 2 a.m. But I have to imagine
even with the generator?
The generator only ran the essential stuff of the hotel. Like it didn't run the rooms. It ran like the lobby and the elevators and stuff.
Okay.
But all the rooms were actually out until like 2:30 in the morning. But do you think it had anything to do with the fact that Kings Island had 10 gazillion lights all over everything in the park? I wondered after that. I was like, is that really a good idea? They probably blew the whole circuit for Cincinnati.
Yeah, they were all authentic C9 bulbs.
The old school ones.
The old
right?
school ones.
Yeah.
Millions of them.
Probably was. Millions of C9. It was like Clark Griswold times 1,000 and wonder why the power went out, right?
Oh, that's a great story.
Oh, well, it was great because you weren't there.
That's great from afar. Actually, before we get into our bottle, a huge shout out to, I've noticed we have some new listeners from Mexico and Ecuador.
Oh, yeah?
That are actually climbing our charts. So they must like our stuff. So
I always knew that we'd be popular in Mexico and Ecuador. Is that what you said?
In Ecuador, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I knew it.
Yep. So for this week, we have a bottle of Lucky 7, the Holiday Toast Double Oak Bourbon.
All right. So, yes, we have a bottle of Holiday Toast. So this comes to us from the Lucky 7 Spirits Company, and it says Bardstown, Kentucky. So I'm not sure if that's exactly where they're located, have a headquarters there. There's no distillery. The bottle date is 2020. ABV is 57.5. Proof is 115. This is a non-age stated bourbon. But since it is toasted, they have on their website, I read that it's aged several years. The bourbon is initially. Then it's, of course, put in a secondary New American cask, and it's then aged further. There's no mash bill disclosed. This is sourced from undisclosed Kentucky distillery, and the MSRP is $75.
All right. So in the spirit of Michael, I'll talk about the bottle this week.
All right.
So the bottle reminds me of a bottle of Calumet bourbon. Do you remember that bottle?
Yeah, I do remember it. It kind of has the same shape. Now, for those of you out there who may be new to Calumet, we're talking about the old school Calumet bottle.
Right. So
the one that they first released. Now they have some that are in a wine bottle. Not the wine bottle Calumet, but the first version.
So to get an idea of it, if you don't know what Calumet is, think of, I guess, your standard like 1792, that kind of shape.
Yep.
It's kind of like wide and narrow. This is more of a broad shoulder than a 1792. But yeah, it almost looks like Ridgemont, the old Ridgemont bottle too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. The bottle is very interesting because it's got this. It is the Holiday Toast edition, and it has what looks to be a ticket. I don't know if it's a movie ticket, a lottery, a raffle ticket, a ride ticket at one of those pop-up festivals that come around. Do we know why there's a ticket on the front?
Well, it's interesting because it's kind of confusing. When you look at the front of the bottle, you obviously see that it says Lucky 7, and it has like this logo on it, but there's really nothing about the bottle that tells you why that ticket is there. If you dig further, and I did do a little bit of digging before we came on the air tonight.
Awesome.
This theme that this folks have for their spirits company, Lucky 7, is after Stage 7, which is a famous studio stage, MGM's studio stage, where like really famous movies were made, like Casablanca and others. And so I think they're trying to capture that movie thematic aspect with their bourbon packaging. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a very unique reason to make a bourbon.
It really is when you think about it. I mean, we've seen stuff themed. I know we talked previous episode about, how Blue Run looks with the butterfly and how Maker's Mark has the iconic wax. And so I guess from a branding standpoint, they're really kind of going all in with this movie theme.
Yeah, I mean, now that you said MGM, the top of it with the 7 looks like the MGM, emblem on the movies. But this one, instead of a lion, it has a 7 that what looks to be like an English family crest.
Yeah.
And flaring out from that is like the film reel.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it's funny that you brought that up because I was looking at it and I wasn't really sure what the heck I was looking at, but now that you said that, it almost does kind of resemble that a lot. You know, if you guys know what we're talking about, that gold seal with the line in the middle for MGM. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty iconic from movies. It kind of looks like that a little bit.
I do like one thing about this bottle, it being, I guess, the holiday toast, which is obviously a limited bottle. Instead of a limited release, it has the wording limited showing.
Oh,
very clever.
More movie.
Very clever.
What do you think about the back of this thing? It's got like the biggest
sleeve
of gold argyle I've ever seen in my entire life.
Is there a connection between argyle and movie sets?
That one's lost on me. And if we're really Luddites when it comes to movies like that, we don't know something, blame us. But it almost looks like a jockey silk to me. You know what I'm talking about? Since we're in horse country here.
Yeah. Well, the cork, going on with the argyle, the cork is real. And it has a great dark wood stain top to it.
Yes.
And the argyle is actually printed onto the actual cork itself inside.
I think if Michael was here, that would be a +2 for a real cork and carrying the design over, right? That's the first time I've really seen a design on a cork before.
And the pop was great.
Yeah.
That was a solid pop.
It was very good.
But yeah, the bottle's pretty interesting. Now, as far as if you're walking by, would this bottle catch your eye? Or is it just blend in with everything else?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, and I'd like to start talking about that more because it is something that, certain bottles get noticed and certain bottles just kind of sit there.
And kind of blend into
They kind of blend in. This one definitely is memorable. It has like a unique look about it, but I mean, this is no knock on them. For me, for a bourbon brand, it almost like screams Scotch or Canadian whiskey at me for some reason. Like it seems to capture that kind of design to me, like aesthetic for whatever reason. And I don't remember why I originally bought this bottle. And I don't think it was because my eye was drawn to it. I think it's because somebody said, we got something new. You want to try it. And I was like, okay.
Well, I don't have to say it would catch my eye only because there's a red ticket on it.
Yeah.
But if it didn't have the red ticket and I was looking at it, the word Lucky 7 just screams gimmick.
Ah, I see that.
And I would be like, oh, and just keep walking.
Yeah.
Like, Lucky 7 just sounds like an awful bourbon name.
I agree with you because even if you look at the front of this, and again, I don't get too negative here before we taste this stuff, but it doesn't even say bourbon. Like, most things say like Kentucky bourbon on them or something large of that nature right on the label. This one, the biggest thing when you look at it, just says Lucky 7 trademark. Curators of fine spirits, and bourbon is really far at the bottom, and it is on the ticket. The ticket is eye-catching, and we didn't even mention this, but the ticket says lift here, right?
What is it, like a Tylenol package where the instructions are inside?
That's what I'm wondering, so I'm going to peel it back here real quick. Oh, look at that.
That's a lot of words.
So it looks like it has tasting notes. It also has a QR code. Yeah, and that one says to do what? What is a QR? Scan this code to watch the film.
They got a movie for a movie bottle. That's interesting.
Yeah, so there's a movie that you can watch that's
pretty
related.
Clever marketing.
So apparently, even though it doesn't say bourbon right on it, it might not look like bourbon. There's a lot of layers to this.
Well, speaking of layers, let's go right into our notes. All right, there's a confession right off the bat.
Okay.
This bottle was brand new when we got it.
Yep.
And we opened it up, and it was hot. We don't know what the mash bill is. We don't know if it's rye or if it's wheat. We're guessing there's rye in it because it kind of came in a little hot.
Yeah, it smells very, very hot. Yeah.
Right. So we've let this thing breathe, and it has really mellowed out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, when we first poured it out, it really had a strong, astringent, sharp oak, and not in a good way, a youthful sharp oak. And now
there was cinnamon in it too, which kind of added to the.
I still smell the cinnamon. All those sharp notes have kind of gone away. Like I've almost given way to like the oak almost smells a little bit like fresh pine to me. That's what I'm getting anyway.
I'm getting really nice, like real subtle char smell.
Okay.
And it has opened up to basically a bakery.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I mean, there is every sort of baking spice, dark fruit that you can imagine from it right there.
Yeah, it's really pleasant. I mean, and I wonder if they named the name is going after what we're smelling here: holiday toast, holiday smells, and I'm getting
Lots
a
of
little bit of
baking
a lot of baking, cinnamon. Like I said, a little bit of a pine. Those are all things
I'm getting the pine
that remind me of Christmas, I guess is the best way to put it. So,
but
I don't know if they planned it.
Yeah, it's
like
a lot better now that it's opened up, and it didn't take very long to open up, maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and it's really changed. So
yeah, Steven and I we poured this out, then we sat there and we stared at each other, and we were like, "What are we going to do now?"
No, that would have been a good Instagram Live.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, hey, come join us so you can see Steven and I like waiting for this bourbon to mellow out a little bit, or hopefully mellow out.
Let's go over our first notes.
All right. Ooh,
it's definitely warm at 115.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely. We've drank. I think we've talked about this before. Most of the bourbon that we've drank is probably in the 90 to 105, 110 range.
Yeah, low 100s. I would think.
Low 100s
with the occasional teens and in the 20s.
Yeah, and the barrel proof stuff. And this is pretty hefty proof wise, and you can definitely feel it when you take that sip. For me, it's a lot of spice. I'm still like massive amount of spice, maybe a little bit of like dark fruit.
Yeah. I'm getting, how old is this?
Well, it's undisclosed. They say aged several years on their website.
Okay.
And then, I mean, most of the toasted or double oak type of bourbons that I've seen out there, they go anywhere from, 3 to 6 months usually in the secondary cask.
In the second, okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little of the, of the wood tannin or the wood youth of it.
Yeah, like a youthful. I know you guys will hate out there for me to say I call it sawdust or like a really bright, like wood flavor.
Bright. Good word. That's a good word.
Yeah, it's not necessarily something you usually want to taste in bourbon. It kind of, I don't know. To me, it's a little bit of a turnoff because it reminds me of all the youthful stuff that I've tried.
Yeah, just young stuff.
Yeah, young stuff. But I mean, it's not overwhelmed by that. It's there. It's
the heat is more present than I think the wood note there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we talk about smooth tasting bourbon, I don't know that I would describe this as smooth.
No, it doesn't make you cough.
It doesn't make you cough, but
it's got a nice hug to it.
Yeah.
But now I wonder if this would be good with like a little water.
I think that
kind of maybe mellow it out.
A little bit because it does have a surprisingly long finish.
It does.
And I don't know. I know that you thought you looked at me all weird, but I think I would describe it almost as like the finish is cinnamony, almost like kind of got a cookie type of a confectionery taste to it. I described it as a little bit like ginger, but you kind of looked at me and said, no, definitely not that. So the nose does translate over the palate. This definitely has a nice mouthfeel to it, but it's also,
that's a good point.
It's also hot.
It's got a, would you call it an aggressive mouthfeel?
Yeah, I think aggressive.
Like it stays there. It almost coats the inside of your mouth and just stays there.
Yes. The first sip that I had, it kind of, I felt it go from the front of the palate all the way to the back and then kind of like, not to be graphic here, but it kind of like burned, on the way down and gave me that hug. The hug you feel at the top of your chest. I was like, oh my God, that's not heartburn out there, ladies and gentlemen. That's a Kentucky hug.
Now this is going to be a completely, I think, ignorant question.
Okay.
But I'm going to go ahead and ask it because I know if I have it, I'm sure someone else does.
Okay.
This has the word toast on it, the bottle.
Yes.
And it also has the word double oak.
Ah.
Is this two different things or is this the same process? Because when you see like a toasted product and then you also see a double oaked product and they're not usually, they're independent of each other.
Yes.
Are those two different things or is that just one? Is that two terms for one thing?
Well, generally speaking, my knowledge is that they're basically the same thing.
Okay.
But I don't want to act like I know because I certainly don't. I'm sure the process is different, and so how those secondary barrels are prepped. And a lot of the case with bourbon, right, the second barrel that it goes into has to still be a new barrel in order for it to be.
I'm sure it's going to be at the same or a different char level.
Yes, and that's what I'm talking about. So, if you look at the different brands out there, we can talk brands in a second, just off the top of my head. We had the Basil Hayden's toasted, right?
Yeah.
We reviewed that in a previous episode. We got Michter's toasted. There's Elijah Craig toasted. Then there's Woodford Reserve double oaked.
Okay.
And to me, those are all similar. I'm sure I'm leaving some out here, but those are all similar. It's just a matter of how long they age in the secondary cask, how they prepare it, what they do. And if you're trying to think about that versus something else like a Canadian whiskey or a Scotch whiskey, Canadian whiskey and Scotches, like they can age in any kind of cask, and many of them often do age in multiple casks, like 5 or 6 casks. Sometimes they're used in this and that. This craze right now in bourbon, the double oaked or toasted craze, and I call it a craze even though it's been around for a long time, it's, I think, supposed to add a layer of complexity to the bourbon.
You would think so.
And it just seems like it's really hot right now. But these folks have been putting the stuff out, I think, for 2 or 3 years. So it's not like they're on the back end of this. They're kind of in the middle of the craze.
Those casking finishes, like the one we did, the Thomas More on the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah, Sauvignon.
That that added the layer of wine to the bourbon, and you could tell. Mm-hmm. We haven't opened the port one yet, but
can't wait for that one. It's going to be delicious.
That's going to be good. But I'm having high hopes, for that one.
Yeah.
So these double castings really, like you said, like they kind of mellow out. I haven't had all of them, but I know for the Woodford double oak, it's really smooth and almost subtle. Like
it is.
It makes it very not delicate, but very soft bourbon.
Yeah, and it brings out a lot of. And see, the difference there is, I feel like the Woodford double oaked, it brings out a lot of great characteristics, like the chocolate notes and the caramel and butterscotch. Usually in Woodford double oak are like off the charts. Mm-hmm. And so I know we're talking about holiday toast here, but I mean, I've talked to a few people recently who know a decent amount about bourbon, and they keep going back and telling me how much they like Woodford double oaked. And then I got somebody else say, I like Michter's toasted better. Elijah Craig's the best toasted barrel, and I don't care about double oaked. Well, they're all essentially the same thing. And if you look at that, the same thing in terms of how they're prepped. But if you look at that liquid, how dark is the liquid of the dark. Double oaked? It's like so dark. And this is...
compared to the other one, the double oak's the only thing you can get on the shelf.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Yeah. I guess the Peerless double oak, that was...
Oh, yeah.
Probably you can get that at the distillery, but I don't think you can probably get it just anytime you want.
I think that it's they have it out in some local stores here, but it's limit one. And you mentioned the Peerless because I have tried that and I like it a lot.
Was it good?
It was good, but we'll have to review that.
How was that compared to the Woodford?
I had the Peerless. It's a higher proof. Oh. It tasted good.
Okay, that's different.
But Woodford's so balanced. I hate to, like I said, we're drinking another bourbon now, and it's got me thinking nothing about that Woodford double oak to some classy, tasty stuff. Woo!
So, Anthony, would you pass, try, or buy on the Lucky 7, the Holiday Toast bourbon?
This one is tough for me. I'm really torn because it is a interesting package. I really like all the presentation of it. I like the story. I even went and watched a little movie now while we're sitting here at BS, and I was like looking it up on my phone. I think it's got a lot going for it. They have other products in their line. They have a 12-year single barrel, 12-year small batch, and they also have a 6-year, I think, small batch bourbon. And then this one, I think, is the most recent of their offerings. And so, I like it. I like it much better than other stuff that I've tried. I can't really say in a similar price point because this is kind of pricey. But in terms of new bourbon that I know nothing about, that should be a category. Here's new bourbon I know nothing about.
Yeah. With
all that being said, I like the flavors. I like the experience, but I'm going to be a solid try on this one because I don't know if I could see myself going back and buying a bottle of this for $75. And to be honest, I don't know how I'm going to be doing after this night, if I'm going to want to try it a lot more, if I'm going to want to share it more, what I'm going to want to do with it.
So I think this bottle really opened up once we let it breathe a little bit, which enhanced its notes, and it's my favorite part is the nosing. Mm-hmm. So I really like that. As far as the taste goes, it's fine. It's a little hot, which is kind of surprising. If it's doubled, you'd think, maybe it'll calm down a little bit or smooth out. But I guess it's not. So this might be a good one to do the 5-drop test or something like that with the water, and see how that goes. Boy, comparing this to the rest of the lineup, the rest of the market with the Woodford coming in at between 40 and 50.
Oh yeah,
the double oak, and the Woodford's just readily available.
Yeah, not only readily available, but there's store picks of it.
And there's store picks, which still be less than the $75.
Yep.
Boy, I'm having a hard time deciding if I'm going to be a pass or a try.
Okay.
Because I can imagine if this was in a restaurant, it might be a pricey pour.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah. I think it might have to be a pass.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it might be a pass because price is $75. It's pretty high. At that point, you got to be getting close to Peerless, Double Oak.
Yeah.
And I imagine, just off their history, I imagine that's a pretty good product.
I mean, from what I had when I tasted the Peerless, I really liked it. It to me had more of the characteristics that you see in a hyped up level with Woodford. I think the problem with this, and the reason why both of us are kind of sitting here kind of stumped a little bit, is I think that the toasted stuff is hiding what ultimately is a very youthful bourbon here.
And that's what we're getting the young wood from, and we're tasting the sawdust and everything.
Yeah, and when you have...
We've talked about that in the past, that some of these upcoming companies will do this to kind of mask the young bourbon that they're using.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to find something to do with it. So you put it in different casks, you do all kinds of stuff, and it makes a better product, in my opinion, in a lot of cases. But is it something that once you spend all the time and effort on it, and the cost is going to go up to $75? I mean, is it going to be worth it? I don't know.
Right, but I mean, I think they nailed the naming of this holiday toast and all the notes that came from it.
Oh, yeah. I actually think that it makes a lot of sense now. It didn't make sense to me when I first saw it on the shelf and when people told me. Like I said, I mean, I bought this bottle probably right around early 2020, and I've had it all this time. All things considered, when you look at the package, you taste the bourbon, it makes like it's. There was a lot of thought that went into this, even if we're not blown away by it.
Right.
Yeah. So one more thing I wanted to say about this bottle real quickly is this company was co-founded by two college buddies, which is pretty cool because, you know, all of us sit around and we have discussions about, you know, one day being able to do something like, I mean, in our case, we're like, we'd love to do a barrel pick or something like that. But I know that...
You know the saying, I drink and I know things, right?
I drink and I know things. I was at the playground the other day and there's, you know, a couple of dads there looking kind of like me, scraggly beards, looking like life's beat them up a little bit. And I can't remember, my son said something and I was like, don't worry, son, it's just another bourbon drinker.
And with that, thanks for listening to this week's edition. Please like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Mashup KY. Also, let us know your thoughts on this bottle in the comment section. Until next time, keep it neat.